Hello, welcome to the very first episode of the Hope podcast. My name is Rajana Miller, founder of the Pathways of Hope program and the host of this podcast. Now, I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I am so excited about this, and I'm really looking forward to our journey together, a journey along the pathways of hope.
So hold on, there is hope. God has sent me here to tell you there is hope. And He knows just what you're going through and what the future holds. As long as Jesus lives, there is.
Now, just a little backstory. I currently serve as the VP, the Vice President of Spiritual Affairs for the United Student Movement, and that's our student government here at NCU. And I'm really passionate about this podcast because it was one of the projections the Lord sent me through a friend. Now, you've probably heard me say pathways of hope, and you might be wondering, hope, H.O.P.E. What does it stand for? Well, it means H, healing, O, optimism, P, prayer, and E, encouragement. You know, hope is a foundational part of our faith as Christians. And even if you're not a Christian, it's still a part of your everyday life. And when we really think about it, hope and faith go hand in hand because both of them require us to believe something, to trust something, to trust that something is going to happen. And we'll look into the definition a little bit later. But before we go into that definition, you may be wondering what this podcast will be about. So I'll just take the next few seconds to give you an idea of what it will be about. So we'll be discussing various topics under hope. Healing, which includes mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual healing. Optimism, prayer, and encouragement. And we're looking at those topics and how they apply to our lives, especially as young persons. How we can use them to help us navigate through our challenges, the situations we face, like real life things, We'll be looking at questions like, why do bad things happen to good people? Or can God be trusted? Or how do I develop a real relationship with God? Things like those. And the most exciting part for me is that we'll be having guests come on and answer some of those questions. So we'll have professionals and, other people. I think the part that you'll enjoy the most is that you have a say in this. Now, if you have a question that needs an answer or you have a topic that you want us to discuss here on the podcast, now listen up. You can email me at pathways.hope777@gmail.com. That's pathways.hope777@gmail.com. And let me know what your topic is, what it is you want us to discuss, all of those good things. And our episodes will be coming in different styles based on your requests. So we might be in storytelling format, or it might be interview style, or discussion style based on how many persons will be coming in. And I'm sure you're really excited for that. And I mean, who knows? We might just have a segment, an episode, where we feature some of our guests or listening audience, Anyway, back to hope and faith. Let me ask you a question. What does it mean to have hope and to have faith? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, hope is a desire accompanied by expectation or belief in fulfillment. It implies little certainty, but it suggests confidence in the possibility that whatever the person wants, they're going to get. Now, faith is defined as belief or trust, and we can see how the two words are similar. Now, let's look at a biblical definition of faith. In Hebrews 11, verse 1, it says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. In other words, faith is seeing the sun behind the blanket of storm clouds. It's hearing the hymns when you're all alone. It's feeling God's presence when He seems to have deserted you. And might I say here that this is what Jesus had when He was in the Garden of Gethsemane, when He was hanging there on the cross. He felt as though He was all alone. He felt as though God left Him. That's why He cried out, "My God, why hast thou forsaken me?" But God was there with Him. It's just that a thick cloud was separating them. The weight of sin separated them. But Jesus' faith, and this is what the Bible talks about when it says the faith of Jesus, not just faith in Jesus, but the faith of Jesus, where Jesus' faith hung to the promise, clung is the word, clung to the promise that his Father would be there for him, even though he couldn't see him and couldn't feel him. But anyway, I love talking about that. So it's believing that even if you don't get, actually before that, it's believing that you've already gotten what you've prayed for, but it's also believing that even if you don't get what you prayed for, God still has your best interest at heart and still is working things out for your good. Faith is what Abraham did when he followed God from his homeland to places he'd never been before. And it's not like God gave him a map to say, "Hey, go here." God was just saying to him, "Okay, pitch your tent today, rest. Okay, get up tomorrow, we're moving." Faith is what is the same thing with Moses actually, when he followed God from Egypt to Canaan with 2.5 million people following behind him. Faith is what Rahab did when she hung the scarlet cord from her window. Now, these famous Bible characters exercised faith, but what about us today? What could faith look like for us? All right, maybe it means, and this is for the dorm students, leaving your dorm to go to CAF, even though you have no money, because you're trusting the Lord to provide. Maybe it means that you're reading verses in the Bible and you're claiming the promises that are there, even when you don't see how it will come through. Now, I know faith can be scary. Trust me, because I remember this one time my family had a mission trip to go on out of the country. And we didn't have a visa to go to that country, and we needed a visa. And you know what we did? Because we said, this is the Lord's work and we are going to trust Him. He's sending us here. We're trusting Him. We bought the plane tickets before we even got the visa. And the day before the flight, we got the visa. The visa for the person that needed it. That is an example of faith. And it was nerve-wracking because we were saying, what if we don't get the visa in time? These things, the visa process is a very long process, and ours was shortened. I don't even know how it was shortened so that we could get it in such short period of time. But that, and another example, I remember when I was in high school and I had washed my white shirts, early in the morning, put it up on the line, but it started to rain. And I was saying, "Lord, please, I don't want to have to take them inside and let them dry inside. Please just let the sun come out and dry the clothes." And it continued raining for about 15 to 30 minutes. But the sun came out. The sun came out and my clothes were dried. And actually, it stayed sunny for the rest of that day. And, it was a lesson for me because I had just been growing in my faith. But it was a lesson for me because sometimes we ask for things and there's a delay. Sometimes God says, wait. But when we see the wait, when He gives us wait as an answer, many times we feel as though it's a no. And we say, "Oh, I can't trust God. Oh, God doesn't do anything for me." Sometimes he wants to show us that, hey, you need to develop patience, but you also need to realize that I'll do it in my time, and my time is the best time. So faith is really this wacko, crazy, out of this world experience that both requires and creates a personal experience with God on a different level. And let's not confuse faith with presumption. Because presumption is, for example, when you know you have a sectional next week and you decide to spend time playing games or scrolling through social media all of this week and into next week instead of going to study. And then the night before, and maybe even the same day of the sectional, you try to cram everything into your brain, and then you say, oh, God will take care of me. No, that's presumption. And it's a tight balance between faith and presumption because both of them are crazy. Both of them don't make sense, if you get what I'm saying. Both of them cannot be explained. You can kind of explain presumption, but both of them are very close. And you can only make the difference between the two if you truly know God as your friend, because he will then tell you, go this extra mile, and that is where your faith would be exercised, versus if he doesn't say anything and you just decide to do it on your own accord. Get what I'm saying? To add a bit more perspective, faith is trusting him to work for your best, while presumption is almost like you're intentionally testing the waters just to see if he'll do it for you, if you get what I'm saying. Now, let's look briefly at the life of Joseph. God called him to be a leader in another country. His family scoffed at him. He was sold, betrayed by his own brothers. He was taken as a slave in a huge country. He was lied on, thrown in prison, and forgotten by basically everybody. But he never lost his faith in God's promise. He never gave up hope that God would make him into who he was made to be, into who God promised him that he would make him to be. Now, as we wrap up this episode, I want you to pause and think about what God may be calling you to do. Persons may laugh at you, betray you, hurt you, and forget about you. But don't you ever dare give up on your hope. Don't lose faith in God's promise, because he that hath begun a good work in you will be faithful to complete it. Just keep up your hope. Well, that takes us to the end of our very first episode of the Hope podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'm really looking forward to our next episodes and our future experience and or journey together. I am your host, Rajana Miller, and see you next time on our journey along the pathways of hope.
Just what you're going through and what the future holds, as long as Jesus lives.